Coming up on a newscast, Seoul and Washington conduct a combined air power demonstration involving 20 planes, including the F-35As, part of displaying readiness following North Korea's missile launches. Local unionized cargo truckers go on a general strike. They demand freight fares raised as diesel prices continue to soar. Tanuri is ready for launch after more than 6 years of preparations. The lunar orbiter will help South Korea reach a major milestone in space exploration.
Hello and welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with our top story. Seoul and Washington responded to Pyongyang's latest ballistic missile launches. The allies had fully armed fighter jets fly in formation in a show of force. Bae-eun-ji starts us off.
20 warplanes fly in formation over the West Sea of South Korea. All of them are fully armed with precision-guided munitions. 16 of them belong to the South Korean military, including F-35A stealth fighter jets. The fleet also includes F-15Ks, capable of conducting long-range precision strike missions in all-weather conditions, as well as the KF-16s. The remaining 4 are U.S. Air Force F-16s. Seoul and Washington conducted this exercise on Tuesday as part of efforts to put on a show of force against Pyongyang, which launched missiles 2 days ago. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the latest move demonstrated the joint defense readiness with the U.S. and Seoul's capability of hitting targets accurately and quickly in case of any kind of provocation from North Korea. The military also said it's closely monitoring the situation in Pyongyang to be ready for any additional provocations. The North on Sunday morning fired a total of 8 short-range ballistic missiles toward the East Sea from 4 different locations. A day later, South Korea and the U.S. fired back with 8 surface-to-surface missiles, also into the East Sea. The recent moves from South Korea come after President Yoon, who took office last month, vowed to take a tougher line against the North than the previous administration. Bae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
America's Deputy Secretary of State is in Seoul for talks with her South Korean counterpart. Wendy Sherman warned a nuclear test by Pyongyang would be met with a swift and forceful response. Kim Dami shares with us what was discussed.
South Korea and the U.S. are fully aligned and ready to respond to any provocation by the regime, including a possible nuclear test. That's according to U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman speaking Tuesday after talks in Seoul with her South Korean counterpart Jo Hyun-dong.
Any nuclear test would be in complete violation of UN Security Council resolutions. There would be a swift and forceful response to such a test.
Saying a resumption of nuclear testing by the North would be destabilizing to world security, she stressed that Seoul, Washington, Tokyo, and the entire world would respond in a strong and clear manner. When asked what contingency plan the U.S. and its allies have for the regime, Sherman gave no explanation but said that North Korea will find out. South Korea's first Vice Foreign Minister also gave a similar warning.
If North Korea conducts a nuclear test, we will have no choice but to look at additional sanctions on the regime in cooperation with the U.S. and the international community.
Jo then reiterated Seoul's long-held aim of Pyongyang's complete denuclearization, something he said is non-negotiable. In Tuesday's talks, Jo and Sherman agreed to continue boosting the two sides' extended deterrence and combined defense posture while firmly maintaining their readiness posture at all times. Also discussed were destabilization of supply chains, an expansion of R&D in key emerging technologies, and cooperation on nuclear power. Jo and Sherman will continue their talks on North Korea issues with their Japanese counterpart Takeo Mori in a trilateral session on Wednesday. Kim Dami, Arirang News.
Seoul and Washington touched on how their close alliance has been strengthened. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman met with South Korea's top diplomat Park Jin and appraised the two countries' summit held last month. They also agreed on the Yoon administration's foreign policy goal of South Korea becoming a global pivotal state. Following the meeting, Sherman posted on her social media that both countries have strengthened the partnership. She added they discussed countermeasures to North Korea, support for Ukraine, and trilateral cooperation with Japan. President Yoon Suk-yeol announced more appointments. For the first time, the top financial regulatory body will be led by a former prosecutor. Also unveiled the country's new ambassadors to Japan, China, Russia, and the UN. Yoon Jung-min gets us better acquainted with the officials.
For the first time in its 23 years of history, South Korea's financial regulator that examines and supervises financial institutions will be headed by a former prosecutor. Former prosecutor of the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office, Lee Bok-hyun, inaugurated as the governor of the nation's Financial Supervisory Service Tuesday. The prosecutor turned governor had previously been in charge of major economic and financial investigations, including Samsung Biologics' alleged accounting fraud. In 2016, he was involved in probes into a political scandal by former President Park Geun-hye and her confidant Choi Soon-sil, and recently stepped down to protest the main opposition Democratic Party's push to strip the prosecution of its investigative powers. Still, controversy remains as the president seems unlikely to avoid critics who say his pick for officials leans too much on those with prosecutorial background. On a separate note, President Yoon completed a new lineup of the top envoys to all major powers after naming his ambassadors to China, Japan, Russia, and the United Nations Tuesday, having already selected his chief of mission to the U.S. last month. For the top mission post in Japan, Yoon tapped Yoon Dong-min, a foreign policy expert who previously headed the Korean National Diplomatic Academy, while naming Chung Jae-ho, a China expert, as ambassador to Beijing. The South Korean leader nominated former presidential secretary for diplomacy under the Lee Myung-bak administration, Chang Ho-jin, as his top diplomat to Russia, and former ambassador to the UK under the Park Geun-hye administration, Hwang Jun-guk, as his permanent mission to the United Nations. Together with Yoon's earlier appointment of Cho Tae-yong as South Korea's ambassador to the U.S., all names for envoys to South Korea's 4 key countries have now been disclosed. On Tuesday, Yoon also appointed the current chief of the Credit Finance Association, Kim Ju-hyun, as the new chairman of the Financial Services Commission. As for the Prime Minister's Secretariat, current Export-Import Bank President Bang Moon-gyu was named as the chief of the Office for Government Policy Coordination.
The top office has put particular emphasis on work experience and expertise in the appointments of Yoon's ambassadors to 4 major posts, as the Yoon administration places exceptional importance on economic security and foreign policy. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The government set up a team to work on its approach to the new U.S.-led pact. Officials on trade, finance, and foreign affairs are looked to help create a leading role for South Korea in the IPEF. Min Suk-hyun has the details.
South Korea has set up a pan-government response team for the recently launched Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, also known as IPEF. At a meeting on Tuesday, ministries including those of Finance, Trade, and Foreign Affairs met to discuss ways to cooperate closely on the U.S.-led economic initiative. This comes as South Korea seeks to play a leading role in the new pact. It also aims to actively take part in defining the economic framework that's centered around 4 pillars: trade, supply chains, clean energy, and lastly, tax and anti-corruption. The government says relevant ministries will work together as one team, but depending on the agenda, related ministries will lead the discussions alone. To maximize the benefits of joining the IPEF and to strengthen economic security, the government also plans to work with the country's private sector. A public-private strategy meeting and a consultative body for each of the 4 IPEF pillars will be implemented soon to help the government communicate closely with business groups. Last month, along with 13 others, South Korea joined the U.S.-led IPEF to strengthen cooperation with regional partners in the Indo-Pacific region. Min Suk-hyun, Arirang News.
Unionized truckers are on strike demanding freight fare raise as fuel prices soar. However, the government warned any illegal action will result in prosecution. Kim Hyun-sung has the full story.
Unionized truckers in South Korea began their strike at the stroke of midnight on Tuesday, demanding a hike in freight fares. With diesel prices skyrocketing, truckers say that it's impossible to maintain a living. The truckers' main demand is for the government to extend the safe trucking freight rate system, which guarantees minimum freight rates. After a 3-year run, that system is due to expire on the last day of this year. But after failing to reach a mutual agreement with the government, the Cargo Truckers Solidarity announced it will go on strike until its demands are met. On 10 a.m. Tuesday, union members nationwide held the strike's official launch ceremony. The government estimates that more than a third of the Cargo Truckers Solidarity joined the movement on the first day. But more may join in the coming days, as there are around 25,000 union members in total. After the ceremony, the protesters proceeded to block the entryways to major ports and logistics terminals. The strike is disrupting shipments in several places, including the terminal in Arirang, Gyeonggi-do province, and cement factories in Chungcheongbuk-do and Gangwon-do provinces, and Hyundai Steel's Pohang factory. But the Ministry of Land, Transport and Maritime Affairs says this isn't currently seen as a major setback. But should the strike continue, the damage may snowball. The presidential office had already said that it would sternly respond to any illegal actions. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo had called the strike a burden to the public and the nation's economy. Kim Hyun-seung, Arirang News.
South Korea's foreign exchange reserves declined for the third straight month despite the weakening dollar boosting non-dollar assets. According to the BOK, as of end of May, reserves amounted to some $448 billion, down about $1.6 billion from April. Though non-dollar assets rose in value, the central bank sold more assets to stabilize the exchange rate. Around 90% of the nation's FX reserves are securities. As of the end of April, Seoul's reserves were the 9th largest in the world. China led the way, followed by Japan. Local health authorities are planning to administer monkeypox vaccines, according to the KDCA. The decision comes as there's a high possibility of the virus reaching the country. South Korea will procure third-generation monkeypox vaccines, which are known to be appropriate for people who are immunocompromised. It was developed by Bavarian Nordic and was approved by the US FDA in 2019. The quantity and the schedules will be announced at a later date. South Korea could reach a major milestone in space exploration soon. After more than 6 years of perfecting its design and trajectory, Tanuri is ready for launch. Shin Yoon introduces to us the lunar orbiter KPLO.
This year, South Korea will join one of humanity's greatest races ever, the space race. And it's all thanks to the KPLO, short for Korea Pathfinder Lunar Orbiter. In 2016, the Korea Aerospace Research Institute, also known as KARI, started developing a spacecraft that has recently been named Tanuri. It's a combination of two Korean words, 달 and Nuri, short for moon and enjoy. The KPLO will travel to the moon by taking a boomerang-shaped trajectory. This flight method is known as BLT, Ballistic Lunar Transfer. Though it will travel farther than any other orbiter during past missions, it will maximize fuel economy because it moves using the gravitational force of the Sun, Moon, and Earth. And the KPLO aims to reach orbit 100 kilometers above the lunar surface by late December this year, from where it will conduct a range of studies. Data will be collected from the moon using 6 instruments on Tanuri. One of them is the shadow cam provided by NASA, which will investigate what's known to be shadow regions of the moon to check for resources like water or ice. A pole cam and LUDI, short for Lunar Terrain Imager, will also be attached. This acts as Tanuri's eyes on the moon, providing high-resolution images of the moon's surface. The magnetic strength of the moon will be measured using a KPLO magnometer, while a gamma-ray spectrometer will also be used to analyze lunar topography. Lastly, a DTNPL device. You can think of this as an internet communication device or space Wi-Fi. This will switch on. Now let's take a listen to what KARI has to say are the determinants of success for the KPLO mission.
There are 3 key points that will determine whether the KPLO mission is successful. Firstly, whether Danuri separates from the rocket it's attached to at the exact position needed for the BLT method. Secondly, if Danuri can enter lunar orbit at an altitude of 100 kilometers by December 16th this year. It has to be punctual because if it's a bit late, it may collide with other countries' orbiters. Finally, we must be able to collect all the data we need using 6 of the instruments aboard Danuri.
Tanuri hopes to carry out research until December 2023. This includes identifying potential landing sites for future lunar missions, as well as the search for usable resources on the moon. The Korea Aerospace Research Institute is going through its final checks before sending off Tanuri to an Air Force base in Florida. Tanuri will then blast off in early August aboard a Falcon 9 rocket made by SpaceX. If successful, Korea would be the 7th country in the world to reach the lunar orbit. 신예은, Arirang News.
Russian troops are stepping up their assault in Severodonetsk. President Zelensky made it clear Ukrainian forces are not giving up their positions. With shipping cut off, Western countries are blaming Moscow for the global food crisis. Ji-young has the latest.
Intense fighting continues with Russian forces seeking to gain control of the eastern Ukrainian city of Severodonetsk. According to the armed forces of Ukraine on Tuesday, Russia is shelling the city using artillery, planes, and helicopters. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the intensity of fighting there and Lysychansk nearby has made them both dead cities. But added, Ukrainian forces are not giving up.
We have a difficult situation in the east. You know the situation in Severodonetsk. We are maintaining the situation. They outnumber us. They are more powerful. But nevertheless, I think we have every chance.
However, heavy fighting in the nearby Donbas region continues, and Russian forces are also approaching the north, resuming attacks on the key city of Sloviansk. Meanwhile, Western countries have spoken out about the dramatic consequences of Russia's war spilling over across the globe. During a UN Security Council meeting on Monday, European Council President Charles Michel addressed the 15-member body, saying that Russia is solely responsible for the food crisis. He also cited reports of sexual violence.
We hear reports of Russian forces wielding sexual violence as a weapon of war. Sexual violence is a war crime against humanity, a tactic of torture, terror, and repression. Shameful acts in a shameful war. And this must be exposed to the light of day and prosecuted without impunity.
Russia's UN ambassador Vasily Nebenzia said he categorically refutes any accusations against sexual violence from Russian troops. Ji-young, Arirang News.
Over in the UK, Boris Johnson narrowly survived a vote of no confidence. The Prime Minister won less than 60% support from his own party, mainly for violating COVID-19 rules in 2020. Some would say the PM's on very thin ice, with a result even worse than his predecessor before she stepped down. Issue provides a closer look.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson lives to see another day. With his entire political career on the line, he narrowly survived a confidence vote from his own party lawmakers on Monday, with 59% of them backing Johnson.
So, I think this is a very good result for politics and for the country. What it means is that as a government, we can move on and focus on the stuff that I think really matters to people.
The British PM has been facing calls from the opposition Labour Party to resign for months. As part of a scandal known as a Partygate, Johnson was fined for attending a rule-breaking gathering during UK's strict COVID-19 lockdown in 2020. And that made him the first sitting prime minister to be sanctioned for breaking the law while in office. Having survived the no-confidence vote, Johnson will be immune from another such challenge for a year. Opposition leader Sir Keir Starmer hit out at lawmakers who voted in favour of Johnson.
The Conservative government now believes that breaking the law is no impediment to making the law.
Watchers say that the narrow victory could mean the writing's already on the wall and that it might shake the party enough to jeopardize his future. In fact, Johnson's winning margin is smaller than that secured by his predecessor Theresa May back in December 2018 in a similar vote. May resigned 6 months later. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now. After 2 years of COVID-19 restrictions, it's now easier to travel to South Korea. With more foreigners expected to visit, the government is launching a new tour program to the former presidential office. It's time with Japan easing its travel rules too. Yoon fills us in.
These are visitors to South Korea from Malaysia, but they are no ordinary tourists. They are dubbed luxury tourists or VIP clients, which means they take business class flights, stay at hotels with at least a 5-star rating, and spend more than $10,000 during their trip. Compared to common Malaysian travel packages to South Korea, the cost of a trip for these luxury clients runs 3 to 4 times higher. For this trip, the price per person was around $6,000. And the theme of this visit was enjoying local gourmet dining at luxury restaurants in Seoul and Busan.
500,000 of Malaysians will come to Korea annually. So after this trip, if I found that the destination, places, the hotel, the food is very suitable for the clients of Malaysia or Southeast Asia.
A group of returning VIP tourists are those that come for international business functions. Such conferences and events that had been on hold since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic are slowly resuming. These business events always include group tours around the city for its participants, which helps local tourism. As Japan plans to open doors to foreign tourists again starting June 10th, the South Korean government is now in a rush to promote various destinations across the country. One of the first programs of its kind invited travel industry representatives from the United States and Canada to experience the latest Cheongwade tour, which was previously the executive office and official residence of the President of South Korea, also known as the Blue House.
It's really an honor to be here and amazing to see in person. So I feel very grateful to be here, and it's so beautiful. A little overwhelming in a good way.
To further promote travel to South Korea, the Korea Tourism Organization has been spreading the Feel the Rhythm of Korea promotional video series that feature cities like Yeoju, Pyeongchang, and Incheon. Now that the time to revive the tourism industry post-COVID-19 has come, South Korea is focusing more on growth and quality than quantity. Through luxurious travel products, the Korea Tourism Organization plans to attract at least 300 luxury tourists this year. Yoon, Arirang News.
Seoul is resuming late-night subway services on weekdays. The operation hours of lines 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8 have been extended to 1 a.m. Trains operated until midnight since April 2022 as part of COVID-19 prevention measures. By August, all lines will run until 1 a.m., although services on weekends and public holidays will still end at midnight. The city saw a need for more late-night transportation as there still aren't enough cabs even after related distancing rules ended. The CEOs of K-pop record labels made it to Billboard's 2022 Indie Power Players, defined as leaders who contribute to the success of the independent music scene. Making the cut include SM's co-CEOs Lee Sung-soo and Tak Young-jun, along with Big Hit Music's Shin Young-jae. Other executives that made the list were Ken Burnt of Disney Music Group, as well as the co-CEOs of Rock Nation, Sherry Bryant and Omar Grant. In April, the 3 Korean CEOs were included in Billboard's 2022 International Power Players as well.
Breezy conditions are expected again tomorrow, with most regions seeing temperatures below the seasonal norms. Daytime readings in Seoul will be nearing 26 degrees Celsius, which is cooler than what we normally see at this time of the year. Eastern parts of the country will be even cooler. Places like Sokcho will see maximum temperatures only getting up to 19 degrees Celsius. And some light showers will be dropping across Gangwon-do and Jeollado provinces tomorrow. This is due to the warm air on the ground clashing with the cold winds, causing unstable atmospheric conditions. Expect about 5 to 20 millimeters of rainfall coming and going. Also, for those near the East Coast, be wary of ocean swell and high waves. Make sure to stay away from the shorelines, piers, and also breakwaters. Morning lows in Seoul and Daejeon will start off at 15 degrees Celsius. And as for the daily highs, Seoul and Chuncheon will get up to 26 degrees. Daejeon and Gwangju will reach 25 degrees Celsius. Another round of nationwide rain is in the forecast this coming Thursday. That's all for now, and enter the weather conditions around the world.
That's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.